I'd like to welcome everyone this afternoon, to the Minds and Money 5 at 5 episode, hosted by ShineWing Australia. ShineWing Australia have been a huge supporter of IMARC and the Minds and Money programs in the live and in-person sense. So it's great to also be doing a digital and online session with them. ShineWing Australia are, advisors and accountants and work across a number of different sectors, including that of the mining industry. ShineWing Australia are also taking a huge part in IMARC 2021 this year, which is happening in October at the Melbourne Showground as the Minds and Money Investment Theatre sponsor. So we're looking forward to doing more with ShineWing as always. Representing ShineWing today, we have Rick Hemphill, who is who's going to be asking and directing a lot of the questions here today, as well as a number of the ShineWing members of their team. Blaney Morgan joins us, as well as Rachel Kraft. Today's particular episode is, surrounding operational challenges and how to overcome some of those with budget restraints, expertise. But we'll also feature some great projects with Rimfire, with Craig Riley. We've also got Simon Mitchell from Southern Gold, and also Tim Mason from Eagle, who's got a project out there in Arizona, which we've just been speaking about. As always, if you've got any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat, and they will come to either myself or otherwise Elaine, and then we'll ask those questions after each of the presenters and the discussion. Or otherwise, I can always unmute you and you can ask the question directly yourself. This episode will also be made available on YouTube and emailed around to everyone tomorrow. And anyone who's missed it, we hope that you enjoy the episode if you rewatch it on demand as well. Without further ado, I think I will pass on to you, Rick, to start the conversation that you've got with Greg.
Thank you, Shireen. Thank you, Elaine, and the Minds and Money crew for pulling this together today. I'm a long-time watcher, first-time speaker on one of the five sessions. So I really enjoy this forum. I'm really grateful to be able to get involved in today's show. And thank you to everyone for dialing in, wherever you might be right now around the world. I think we've probably got more of an Australian focus here today. The darkness out the window right now would suggest that I am Melbourne-based and back into the dark evenings now, which is pretty depressing. But I can counteract this tonight because I'm really excited about the cast and the panel that we've got on that we'll be presenting to you. So I think it'll be a really good show. We do have a theme in our mining updates, and that is a gold and copper exploration theme. Currently trading at 1,792 US an ounce and $4.27 respectively. I would suggest that these are two of the most exciting commodities to be involved with at the moment. And that is not only because of the record prices of the last 12 months either. And further to this, we have three panelists that are providing updates on their activities. And they're three that are really amongst the thick of it as well. So I think it'll be a great session. So again, I'd like to formally welcome Craig Riley, Managing Director and CEO of Rimfire Pacific Mining. Greg Keane, his sidekick, CFO at Rimfire Pacific Mining. Simon Mitchell, Managing Director at Southern Gold. And Tim Mason, CEO at Eagle Mountain Mining. Now, I'll double up on what Shireen introduced us with, but just go a little step further. We're a full service accounting and advisory firm located in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and more recently Perth. We've been around for over 80 years and joined the ShineWing network in 2015 to take on a really aggressive Asian strategy. And from the banner behind me, you can see that we're an Australian-owned firm opening doors and building connections throughout Asia. From an energy and resources perspective, we provide services to companies from the likes of Yancoal with a market cap of $3 billion, right down to unlisted ventures and a number of small cap explorers, one of which is in today's panel. I come from a background of accounting and taxation services in the mid-market. So on the scale of explorers, developers, and producers, I'm certainly sitting on the lower end. But I really value the business involvement that we can have at that level, and really value the relationships that we foster there. It's not always an easy gig as an exploration company. There are a lot of challenges there, so we really enjoy being on that ride. And personally, with my accounting hat on, I'm a real tech nerd at heart, and I like to get into the detail. I've attended a number of these 5 at 5 sessions, and the in-person networking events that were previously held, which sadly feel like a very distant memory. But I'm always interested in hearing about organisations that leverage technology for data-driven decision-making. Mining is an industry that you hear a lot about, the technological advancements, and there's a clear appetite in the sector that we see to lead in this space. And it's also very possible now to operate in a totally paperless office in today's environment. And so it helps even the smaller end of town become totally data-driven in everything that they do. So not only from geoscience as core business, which we will explore, pardon the pun there, but extending this to financial data, marketing activities, and investor analysis. So put simply, we see that business intelligence is not something reserved for the big players. So automation is easily accessible now more than ever. From a technical exploration perspective, hopefully we continue to see new technology lead to new opportunities for explorers to get deeper into their resources. And I think a really prominent example that's been raised on a couple of these sessions is the likes of Kirkland and the Fosterville mine in Bendigo and what they were able to achieve there over the last few years. So the trend, we see it as being new technology allowing for the reprocessing of old geophysics at established sites and the rerunning of old data in new models. I think this really makes it an exciting time to be watching on the exploration and developer companies over the next few years. They're really able to become a lot more predictive in their activities, more now than ever before, and it's really what I'm excited in hearing about. So I'm certainly hoping we can draw some of these aspects out of our exploration updates that will be coming up. Now, enough about us. I've asked Craig, Riley and Greg Keane from Rimfire to join today, not only to provide their mining update, but to chat through operating in this sometimes tough environment and share a bit more of their story. Craig joined Rimfire in September 2018 in the capacity as Business Development Manager. He was appointed as CEO in February 2019. A geologist by trade, Craig has more than 25 years of exploration and mining industry experience with a successful track record across a range of commodities and continents. Greg was appointed as the CFO in May 2017 as a highly experienced commercial and financial professional and has mining in the blood, I believe. His career has involved hands-on management of resources companies in accounting, IT, HR, logistics and contracts, both within Australia and overseas. So I've worked with Rimfire for a number of years now. Typically, Rimfire's gone back to its loyal investor base for funding every 12 to 18 months to continue their activities. It's a really common theme that we see across the exploration industry. I think this speaks volumes of the environment. I was hoping if I could hand over to Craig and Greg just to comment on this and to talk about some of the challenges faced when it comes to regularly raising capital and getting that money into the ground.
Well, thanks very much, Rick. What I might comment on is it's a real issue, raising money year on year. And one of the common themes that we have is head office costs and how effectively and efficiently you're using the money that you do raise. And one of the things that we found that's really helped us is that we've got cloud-based server platforms, and we've got a cloud-based accounting software systems. And so that allows us to keep our head office costs to a minimum and put more focus into what we really want to do on the ground.
Thanks, Craig. And can I just ask as well, just extending that to that as well, I've found that within all the teams that I'm operating with and my clients, there's been a real shift in terms of the contact and interaction that we have with them. Everyone seems to be working remotely and contacting each other through Microsoft Teams and sharing documents and things like that. Does that extend out as well to, I guess, some of the team that you have on the ground out in rural New South Wales?
Well, we've been quite fortunate through the whole COVID period that we've had pretty good access to the ground. But what we've been able to do through having cloud-based systems and relationships with consulting groups such as ShineWing is we've been able to manage those compliance activities remotely without face-to-face interaction. So by and large, we've been able to have programs run smoothly apart from act of gods, which are the flood events that have been occurring across the east coast of Australia this year.
Thank you. And Greg, I might get you to comment on that as well. You've been around for a long time and worked in a number of different organisations. How have you seen that change over the last 12 months specifically? And how's the impact been on you?
Well, I think with the COVID and the restrictions with working remotely, it's forced us a lot to push forward more into the cloud. And what we've done too is we've actually, our relationship in terms of with ShineWing has moved from a transactional basis to more collaborative basis, because we're automating a lot more of the statutory reporting, the reporting we need to do to our earn-in partners and our own internal reporting and forecasting. And by having those tools, enables us to access them wherever we are operating from, and also enables us to be on top of the information so that we can understand exactly where our costs are and what the future looks like for our cash flow forecasting and our funding requirements.
I think to add to that, there's obviously been a shift with you guys as well in terms of the raising of capital. You've got more of a comfort blanket now. Without eating into Craig's update, the new joint venture arrangement that you have with GPR out there has been able, I think, to give you a bit of a blanket to build that out as well, and provide you guys with a bit more operational comfort moving forward. So I'll be looking forward to hearing a little bit about that in the update too. So what I might do, Craig, is I'll leave you on the floor and I'll get Elaine to pull up your slides, if that sounds good. And I'll get you to give us a rundown on all the happenings at Rimfire at the moment.
Okay, thanks very much, Rick. Okay, next slide. This is the standard disclaimers. I won't read through it all, but everything in this brief overview is available in our latest corporate presentation that's on our webpage. So there's nothing new here, but that corporate presentation provides a more expansive overview. One of this particular slide that you're looking at now, what it shows is that we've got a significant land holding in an area that is got quite significant existing operations. You've got Cal, which Evolution are operating, North Parks, which is a porphyry copper gold. Off to the east, you've got the Newcrest Cadia Ridgeway gold copper operation, and then Keane to the north. So it's a very prospective area in the Lachlan Fold Belt, where we have a significant land holding of 900 plus square kilometres. Next slide, please. This one goes to the funding that Rick referred to earlier on. One of the biggest challenges for junior companies that we all experience is that our work programs are very start and stop, which is a very inefficient way to actually execute field programs. And what we've done to mitigate the loss of efficiency and effectiveness from that operational model is adopt a dual strategy. And so getting in a partner to help us with the monetisation of Sorpresa and the exploration within 100 square kilometre area allows us to maintain a team and a presence on the ground through the full funding cycle. And that then allows us to continue the second part of our strategy, which is for a large-scale discovery, which is the ultimate reward that most investors are seeking when they engage with a micro cap that's involved in the exploration end of the industry. Next slide, please. This one's talking about the monetisation strategy that we've got at Sorpresa. What a lot of people don't realise is that it's 1.5 million a year, but what we've done is we've taken 300,000 of that each year goes to Rimfire corporate admin, and that takes care of a fair chunk of our G&A with the efficiencies that we've brought in place with going to cloud platforms and longer term relationships with service providers, including ShineWing. The other component that people don't understand with this deal, and that we're working on better communicating to the broader market, is that once the minimum conditions are met and we actually get development consent, the joint venture partner will fund our share of the development. So we've already got a funding solution locked in at commercial rates. So the big hurdle is getting the development consent, and it's not the funding, which is quite an unusual situation for a junior company to be in. And you can see from the map on the left, the actual earning area represents a very small proportion of the broader ground holding in an area that is very prospective. And if you have a look at the easternmost outline, that's an area where is surrounded by Kincora, and there's been quite a bit of news around them with their Trundle Park and Murdialloc prospects being quite potential for porphyry copper. And we've got Valley Prospect out there that we've been drilling, and we're looking forward to the results from that program. So that's exciting news to come. And I thank you for your time, and look forward to any questions.
Thank you, Craig. Shireen, do we have any questions from any of the participants online?
No, unfortunately, none have come through on here.
Well, I've pre-prepared a few myself, so I might run with them now if you don't mind. So, Craig, I just wanted to ask you, over the last year, whether you've found it an advantage operating through New South Wales and in Australia in terms of border closures, and also just touch on as well how many troops you've got on the ground, because I do believe you've got some pretty good operators down there too.
Yeah, we've got half a dozen people on the ground, generally, excluding drilling contractors that come through at variable times. I suppose the best thing that we've got going for us is we've got two older, more experienced geologists. One gentleman was Mick Love, and he was actually responsible for the discovery of the Cow gold project that Evolution are mining. So he was also involved with the original discovery at North Parks for the porphyry copper system there. So he brings a great depth of experience from a regional context. And then we've got another gentleman who's an old prospecting type individual that really focuses in on the small scale. And he's actually had the opportunity to make discoveries, mine those discoveries, and then shut them down or go through the closure cycle as a self-funded prospector. And so having his experience and involvement has been quite rewarding, and is a point of difference that we feel the two of those make in our exploration endeavours.
Thanks for that, Craig. And can I also, just touching on Sorpresa as well, can I just ask what the timeline is that you expect to first production, and then expectations, if you have any at the moment, from a cash flow perspective?
Well, the joint venture partner that's come in, GPR, they provided us the funding to allow us to commence environmental impact assessment studies towards getting development consent and a mining lease. So those studies kicked off in February. If everything goes to plan, we should be able to lodge an environmental impact statement end of the first quarter 2022, and then about 2 years after that be in a position of having first ore. But these approval cycles and getting government consent and support of the community can be a little bit challenging. So we keep working towards that timeline, and at the moment we don't have any major issues, and so we plough on.
Beautiful. And I guess what's the, I guess, if I'm a shareholder out there, what can I look forward to in terms of news flows coming from Rimfire over the next quarter and I guess the remainder of the year?
Well, the most exciting thing that you can look forward to is the last hole we did had a 55-metre intercept of about 1 gram per tonne gold from 6 metres depth, and the last metre was 10 grams per tonne gold. And so we're currently drilling a diamond core hole, twinning that and extending that hole. And so that's the most exciting item on the radar for us at the moment in the JV area. And then we've also got the drill hole that's been done out the valley, testing for Ordovician basement, which is the host rock for Cowal, North Parks, Cadia, and the results of that should be coming through the system in the next 6 to 8 weeks as well. So pretty exciting times on both fronts.
Yeah, I think the smile on your face gives it away as well.
I was going to say that, Rick. I saw that smile on Craig's face just light up as he talked about those results.
Not a poker face.
No, definitely not. If that's okay, Rick and Craig, we might move on to our next speaker.
Sounds good. So we're going to next. Oh, sorry, my light's gone off. I'll go and get that in a second. But the next speaker that we have is Simon Mitchell from Southern Gold. So Simon is a geologist and a corporate executive with 30 years of resources industry experience in technical and financial roles, including over 10 years of gold exploration and mine development experience with RGC exploration, goldfields and Aurora in countries as diverse as Australia, Bolivia, Chile, Papua New Guinea and Indonesia. And additionally, Simon rounds this out nicely with 6 years of finance experience at CBA, predominantly in project finance. So Simon, welcome. Over to you, mate.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate the introduction. And it sounds like I've worked in a number of countries overseas, doesn't it? And when you read it like that. But Korea is a unique place. Of all the places I've worked in my career, there is just nothing quite like what we see in Korea, both in terms of culture, the sort of broader social context, if you will, as well as the sort of technical opportunity. Look, I know these things are short, sharp and sweet, so I'll kick right into it. And hopefully, I know it's only a few slides, but it's enough for people who are new to this story to get their curiosity up and take a deeper dive post-presentation. So for those of you who don't know, Southern Gold is all about South Korea. We're 100% focused on it. We believe it's a new frontier for the potential epithermal gold-silver discoveries. And as I've got on the cover here, we believe it's got the right geology. We've got the right geos working on it. And we're fully funded and we're out there working on these projects and drilling them. So this underpins our strategy, which is all about the discovery of high-grade precious metal deposits. Next slide, please. Thanks, Elaine. And again, thank you. Right. A lot of people don't know about Korea. It's a bit off everyone's radar. And even those who have travelled to Korea probably have just gone through Seoul and just kept going. And so it's a little bit unusual to explain to people the kind of geological context and why it might be quite interesting. Stepping back from it, a macro picture, we think it's a very good neighbourhood. You've got world-class deposits that have been found in the countries adjacent, such as the most famous being Hishikari in Japan, but perhaps less well known are world-class deposits being found in the Jiangdong Peninsula in China. Xiling being the most obvious one that was discovered not that long ago. Sitting in between the two is South Korea. And you can see from the photographs there that historically, epithermal mineralization has been found there. And it was done by the Ivanhoe Group back in the 1990s. We know for a fact that these systems exist there. Ivanhoe found them, in fact, even got one up and going with a mine, which is the photograph on the bottom right. And so that's really what underpins the big picture prospectivity, if you will, is this demonstration that we've actually got some huge potential in country for this style of deposit. Okay, next slide, thank you. And I mentioned Ivanhoe before. They were the ones back in the 90s that found it, and a little bit like getting the old band back together again, quite a few of our technical group are ex-Ivanhoe guys. And these are people who were there back in the 90s, either working directly in South Korea or possibly in China and Mongolia. And people like Doug Kerwin, who's on our board, but also perhaps less well known, Craig Panther, who's a New Zealand-based geologist, made multiple discoveries in New Zealand. These guys are all epithermal experts. And so we've got the right guys on the crowd. You can see there I've got little green arrows pointing to the Korean team there sitting around the table, ably led by our in-country manager, a guy called BJ Kim, who sits in the middle of the table there. And these are the guys who have kept things going on the ground while we've had the COVID situation, and we've been able to kind of keep momentum, including drilling. So we think we've got the right people deployed on the right geology, and we're out there, boots on the ground, doing very good work. Okay, next slide. Thanks, Elaine. Fully funded drilling was that other third component I mentioned before. So we're in the right place, good jurisdiction. You know, Korea, an amazing country in terms of its development. You can see there I've got on bottom left, Miracle on the Han River, as the Koreans refer to it. And basically that's the transformation of the country from post-war, relatively low GDP to being a world leader today. And a world leader in a number of different industries. On the right-hand side is a bit more like why we're there, which is really about targeting new mineral systems, epithermal systems, very, very high grade. Everyone knows epithermal's tricky to find, but we're out there finding good rocks on the surface. And the big takeaway for people is that in the main, a lot of these systems have never been drilled before. So we're usually the first company to come up and drill virgin systems. You can see there we're well cashed up, and we're ready to really take this opportunity by the horns over the next couple of years. So that's it in a nutshell, Rick. I hope that was quick enough.
That was brilliant. I wasn't keeping a timer going. I don't know if you were, Shireen, but that was pretty good, I think. Any questions out there, Shireen, before I go to any of my pre-cooked ones? I think there's one just popped up, actually, by the way.
Yeah, I can see one in the chat there.
All right, yes. Hi, Simon. On the assumption that not many mineral deposits have been developed as yet, what attitude does the Korean government have towards the mining sector and foreign investment? And that's from Jacob.
Yeah, no, good question. And on the mining side, you've got to bear in mind that it's a tiny, tiny part of the Korean economy. I think it's something in the order of about 0.4% of their GDP. And precious metals mining is about less than 0.1%. And so, you know, that's the country of the Samsungs, the LGs, the Hyundais, and that's really where the main game is for them. It's also one of the reasons I think why there are no royalties with mining in Korea. And in fact, when we have discussions with government authorities, they're more interested in us being active in the field, spending money and investing in the country than they are in taxing us. And that's refreshing because it means we're getting very, very good government support. So I would say the broad answer to the question is that very, very good government support, including fiscal support. There will be challenges in development because it's a high population density country. And so depending on the context in which you find something, you've obviously got to work through those issues. And it's one of the reasons why we have one of the biggest teams, or one of the big teams in terms of local relationships and environmental management like we do. We manage those sort of issues very, very seriously from the very first day.
Cool. Thanks for that, Simon. And thanks for the question, Jacob. I love your story, Simon, because it's not often that a country like South Korea comes up on the radar. It's certainly what you consider a far cry from rural New South Wales or outback WA in terms of geography, population density, and things like that. I guess one of the things that I'd like to ask you about is in terms of there wouldn't be a great deal of players out there to benchmark yourself against. So how do you go about that? Are you able to actually monitor anyone in your surrounds, noting that you did have China and Japan, a couple of sites there, and any differences if that is the case?
Yeah, well, the short answer is that in Korea itself, no, we don't have any peers. And in fact, we're really the only serious game in town. There is some private interests in Korea that are involved in the mining industry, but they're relatively small. In terms of listed companies, true benchmark peers, if you will, we don't really have anything. The closest we would have would be the guys who operate in Japan, and there's a couple of Canadian companies that fall into that category, but no Australian ones. But there are some strong parallels between Japan and Korea, but the comparison is not perfect. The geology has some similarities, but different age rocks. So you can, they're analogous without being the same. But, the big difference in my book is that in Korea, we're able to operate effectively at relatively low cost, whereas in Japan, costs are very high. I did look at Japan as a potential investment jurisdiction. It's very difficult to operate there, and it's very expensive. And we get a lot easier run of it in Korea, to be honest.
Thank you. And can I just ask as well, in terms of what would you consider to be your most significant challenges?
The most significant challenge would be when we're doing work on the ground and integrating with local communities. Basically, Korea is almost like the complete opposite of Australia. You know how a lot of people, when they're exploring in Australia, they'll deal with a local landowner who's, a farmer that's got many hundreds of square kilometres under his belt, and you're dealing with one guy effectively. In Korea, land ownership is split up into smaller blocks, and that's a double-edged sword. So sometimes you can deal with people that are quite difficult to get approvals and to move forward. But the flip side of that is that the ground positions are always very small. So if you do have some frustrations, you can easily move to the next block of land and work from there. And in the main, 9 times in 10, we find Koreans to be very pragmatic, and we can work through those issues. But I think that once you move into production, you definitely have to be cognizant of the fact that you're going to deal with a lot of integration issues with local Korean people. And it's one of the reasons why we take those local relationships very seriously from the first day.
I was going to ask you, Simon, in terms of operational things, like obviously we've got ShineWing talking about accounting systems and working across different jurisdictions. Are you having to do or use or look at it differently from both a Korean business and operational perspective as well as an Australian one? Do you have to run 2 different sort of systems, or is it the same?
Yeah, no, we're all on the one system, all on one network. Korea has a very high-speed internet. In fact, probably one of the highest-speed internets in the world, and so we can integrate with our Korean systems, very effectively. That hasn't really presented too much of a problem. There are a few idiosyncratic things about Korean accounting that has to be done locally because of their accounting's done slightly differently, etc. But I mean, other than that, we're not having to duplicate too much.
Okay. And great to see Douglas Kerwin there on the board.
Yes.
Pioneer.
Well, that's right. So Doug was involved in some of those discoveries in southwestern Korea back in the 1990s with Ivanhoe. And it's a bit of unfinished business for Doug. I think he's very keen to get back there and find more. Basically, Ivanhoe left the country relatively early because they made the discoveries in Mongolia, which were the big world-class systems. Understandable decision at the time. But we believe that there's huge potential to make these epithermal discoveries, something that Doug has believed from the very beginning.
Okay.
And I think it's an important takeaway that you have a lot of cash to do that as well, Simon.
We do, yes. We Well, as everyone knows, gold had a good year last year. We raised a bit of money off the back of that. We're basically well funded for a couple of years. And not only that, we're in the process of selling some assets. There was a joint venture with Bluebird Merchant Ventures, which has got a price tag on it now of 10 million US. We're not about to get a $10 million US check, but we will certainly on the asset side of the register have a kick up on our balance sheet of 10 million US, which is not insignificant for a company of our market cap. In fact, it's probably almost our market cap. So, we think we're in very, very good shape in terms of the fiscal context over the next, say, 3-4 years.
I think if you were going to get a $10 million check, you'd be smiling as much as Craig was in that presentation about his gold find. I certainly would be.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Simon. And Rick, shall we move on to Tim?
Sounds good to me. So just a quick intro on Tim again before he kicks off. So Tim commenced as the CEO of Eagle Mountain Mining in January 2020. This follows his previous roles as General Manager of Projects and Innovation at a previous role. I can't recall what that was, Tim. I lost my notes, sorry. But maybe you can add that into your bio as well for me.
Sure. No worries. Was at the end of it, I can get going then. Look, yeah, I've had a bit of a range of, I'm an engineer by background, but it was some time ago, but I've been working with Newmont and Panoramic Resources and a few other groups, but yeah, joined about a year ago. But look, let me get straight into it. We're in copper. Copper's very, very hot at the moment with the EV thematic. A lot of you would have seen where the copper prices have gone, and there's people calling some really, really strong prices going forward, but we can park that one until the end if anyone's got any questions. But about us, we are, I'm going to talk about our Oracle Ridge project, which you can see on the screens near Tucson. We acquired this project in 2019. It's quite a reasonable sort of size skarn copper, silver, gold project, which was last mined in the mid-90s. Now, what we really liked about this project was not only in Arizona, home to big major mining projects, BHP Rio, Hud Bay, South 32, you get big copper projects. If anyone's been through Arizona, this is where you get some really, really big systems. Now, at Oracle Ridge, there's a skarn project, and in comparison to a lot of the other projects around us, they have similar skarns, sometimes not quite as big as what we've got, but they're also associated with other big major systems, often lots of porphyries, some quite good grades, like you get like Resolution, and some which are obviously lower too. In our case, that hasn't ever been discovered. Indeed, we don't think anyone's even gone looking for it. But what we did see was around us, there's a whole lot of smoke. There's the existing resource, it's got 700 holes through it already, but we could see that the potential to be a whole lot larger. So we started drilling in September last year, and since then we've had over 90% of our holes outside the resource have hit mineralisation. So it's been a fantastic start to our drilling. And we've been expanding our ground position and coming up with some really exciting targets. Just last week, we put out a 4-kilometre trend with some grades up to 10% copper outcropping as well. So I'll talk about those in a moment. So we've had a good run so far. As you can see here, there's 3 smelters in Arizona just north of us. It's very mining-friendly jurisdiction. Next slide, please. So as investment highlights, I guess one of the big ones is we've had a bit of a new discovery of a new zone, which is all in addition to our existing JORC resource of 12 million tonnes, 1.5% copper with silver and gold there as well. We've started drilling. Today, we just announced that we're going to ramp up our drilling. So far, we've been drilling with 1 rig. Over the coming, by June, we're looking for a 3-fold increase in that, and then we're going to look for another 3 rigs after that again. We did a capital raising in February, so we've got $11 million we raised in that capital raising, so we're certainly well funded to really get going. Whilst we're getting such strong results and consistently, it makes sense to keep on drilling this out and build that resource up. We want to become a mine. We're not paper spinners. We were founded by Charlie Bass. A lot of you will know Charlie. He has a formidable track record of finding big discoveries, including he found Nimmery, which is now owned by Northern Star, colloquially known as Jundee. He was the discoverer of that. Also one of the founders of Aquila, which he took from inception to be bought out for $1.6 billion. So he's well known in the industry, and he's our managing director. Next slide, please. So this is a plan view of our resources, what you can see there in orange. We've been starting to drill around it. This was just a couple of the recent results that we put out. One of them there up to 34% copper, which was within a broader zone of 12 metres going up 4%. We're located on the top of a hill. You can see in those grey zones there, if you can work it out, that's where the existing development is. So there's about 18 kilometres of existing development from when this was mined previously. And essentially just about every hole we've put in so far outside the resource has been getting between, sort of down from 5 up to about 20 metres thick, with grades between, some a bit less than 1 or around about 1% copper up to about 4 or 5% copper with some zones in there, obviously much higher grade. That last one, sort of 34, but we've had plenty of ones above 10% copper as well. Next slide, please. So this is the new discovered zone. This is all outside the resource. So this is all upside to the existing resource. And it's probably, unless if you've got a decent screen, see what the grades are. But again, consistently well above 2% copper. Now, the holes have been about 300 metres deep, but we're located on the side of a hill. So if you can kind of imagine that we're actually just effectively at ground level. So this is one area. This extends on a geophysical anomaly for about another 300 metres to the south of there. We've put out an exploration target suggesting what we've defined just as extensions of the resource could be about 3 or 4 times larger than what we've got defined. So that'd be putting us up into the 30 to 40 million tonnes of ore mark, so which is certainly quite significant. Next slide. So this is a photo from, okay, no, this one here is much better. So this is the big system. This is what we can really see as the potential for Oracle Ridge. We are doing a whole lot of work around geochemistry, alteration. We've just appointed Manuel Ramos, who is the ex-CEO or ex-president of ASACO. They're one of the biggest copper producers in Arizona, to come and help take us forward through studies and get this into production, along with potentially looking at other acquisitions within Arizona or around the US to bolt on as well. We're focusing on expanding that existing resource. With the ramp up of drilling, we're going to start getting that resource up from indicated up to measured for what will be in the early start part of the mine life, and then also upgrading what we've got inferred up to indicated as well. We're looking to expand that existing skarn, but at this meantime, what else is around us? We've over doubled our land holding. If you can see on that right-hand side where it says down gold mineralisation, we're noticing there's a really strong correlation of good mineralisation along the contact between the leatherwood and, which is that sort of that light grey zone, and that sort of browny zone. This is where that new intercept is what we're seeing. Now, our interpretation is that potentially hole repeats itself at the bottom side of that contact. Last week, we mapped where that contact daylights over 4 kilometres of outcropping copper mineralisation very consistently along there, up to 10% copper. So it's really started to confirm that what we see, that there's potential for a lot more mineralisation, can certainly be there. Hence why we're really ramping up our drilling to be able to drill some of these targets. What you can see there, that big blob, is it's a concept of a porphyry system. It's where fluids have come up from a depth, they've come from somewhere, highly mineralised zone. We know there's something there somewhere. Where it is, we don't know yet. That's a bit of a blue sky potential for us. Next slide. So look, this is a photo from our existing underground. There's about 18 kilometres of development. If you had to put that in today, that would be in the order of, call it 50 to possibly $80 million to go and put in 18 kilometres of development. So restart potential, we're in a really, really good position there. Look, in summary, we're drilling. We've been getting some great results. We are now just looking to ramp up our drilling. We've got a team who's got a track record of finding big discoveries, and we're getting some really, really good exploration results with some really good grade across the system. So quite simply, that's the 5-minute intro to Eagle Mountain Mining.
Thanks for that, Tim. And Shireen, it looks like we've had a question pop through. I don't know if you want to read that one out or unmute Jacob.
Yeah, I'm unmuting Jacob to ask this question yourself. Go for it, Jacob.
Thanks, Shireen. Yeah, so Tim, my question is just on the copper price. As you mentioned, there's a lot of predictions that are suggesting that it will really increase with the thematics. So do you take much notice of that, or are you focused solely on continuing to explore in Arizona?
Yeah, no, really good question. Now, what it means for us, like in particular, is if with our resource, we've got quite a steep tons and grade curve. If we move our cutoff grade from what we've got as 1% down to 0.8, we get about 40% more contained copper. So that impact of having that higher copper price has a significant impact on the potentially, once we've got to confirm this with studies, with how much could be potentially mined. Now, what we don't know is what's the sweet spot for mining this? Is it bigger tons with slightly lower grade, or do you do conversely, you go higher grade with a smaller? But we need to, whilst we're just getting such good results, we need to drill this out and so we can make those good decisions for when we're doing our studies, essentially. So look, no, we certainly track it, you know, but you've got to take a bit of a long, you can't do this on a day by day or week by week basis. You know, we want to get our resource base up so we can ride these commodity cycles. The reality is I want 8 to 10 years of mine life there, and you know at some point the copper price is going to come down. That's going to be and you need to be able to ride those cycles. So, you know, it's important to get those production rates up. Our mine was last mined at about 250, 300,000 tonne a year. We want to be doing that sort of 5 times that. You know, 1.5 million tonnes a year, get your unit cost down so you can sustain those cycles.
Sure. Thanks for that, Tim.
Tim, I was going to ask you, just in regards to the results of the last week with the Oracle Ridge extension zone, whether
Yes.
like they're very encouraging, obviously. Does that change your focus, which has been on Oracle Ridge previously?
No, it doesn't. This stage, we want to going to keep a drill doing what it's doing at the moment because they're getting great results. We're stepping out 40 to 50 metres. We've done the fundraising, so we're funded for that. We're bringing on the extra drill, which is going to start on the 10th of May, so just in a few weeks' time. It's going to enable us to be able to start putting rigs elsewhere around the project.
Right. And are you doing anything different to your peers in the area as well, noting that there are quite a few big players there?
Yeah, look, I think there's a few other groups in there as well. We're not rushing to get into studies. We're drilling this out to know what we're sitting on. We're not going out to the market saying we're going and we're getting straight into production. It wouldn't be doing what's right by the resource. So that's probably one thing. But we're also spending a lot of effort on doing good geophysics, doing good geochemistry, looking at alteration studies, and that helps us vector towards where these hotspots are. I'm not saying our peers aren't doing that by any means, but that is something which we're having a big focus on. It's not just about the drill bit. In our minds, that's the end product. That's what you do all your right geology, and then you can, when you're drilling, showing that you're getting the right results, you know that it's working. Some of the things, we've got quite a strong magnetite association, so geophysics is a really good technique and tool for helping to find some of these zones. And yeah, look, it's working really, really well.
Brilliant. And I suppose probably more a comment than anything else, but just noticing from your recent capital raises that you're increasing the prices each time as well. I think that's a really encouraging sign.
Yeah, thank you. Now, that's the ideal, and it's worked so far. We've done a few raises, 13 cents. We did 15 cents. The last one we did at 35 cents. So it's good. We want to make sure we are rewarding those who back us, and so hopefully subsequent raises are going to be at high prices for sure.
We have this question here from Simon. Simon, do you want to ask this, I guess, more industry specific question to?
I'm just very interested with copper. I've been following copper recently, and a lot of it's going into the Chinese market. Obviously, you're in the US market. Is that a big advantage having that customer base there? And with what's going on in China at the moment?
Yeah, no, good. Well, there's been a number of reports saying that copper's now coming out as a strategic metal for the US. So we know that they've been stockpiling there, and I think a lot of countries are trying to do the same. You can see what's happening on the LME with their stockpiles. They're coming right off. They recently came up, they've come back a bit now, but overall they're relatively down. historically, what they used to produce at our mine was a bulk copper, silver, gold con. They sold it to one of the local smelters. It was through Glencore, how they did it. Now, look, we would probably look to do a similar sort of arrangement, and we'd have to oblige by what, the US. We're in the US. It's produced in the US. Strategic metal being produced in the US. It's probably going to stay in the US, I'd guess. But once we've sold it, I think
Fair enough. Okay. Do we have any questions, Rick, that you wanted to pose further, or are we happy to take any questions or comments from the floor, or further talk about some of those specific things that you brought up at the beginning, Rick, with these juniors and miners?
Yeah, no, look, I think I've covered off my questions during the panel after each panelist there. So I'm happy to take questions from the floor if anyone wants to reach out to the panel at all. Otherwise, I'll leave it over with you, Shireen.
Sure. Okay. I mean, Simon, once we have this and close this out, maybe a good question for Simon and Tim, because we've heard from Greg and Craig's perspective on this, but from Simon and Tim, obviously with the topic at hand and the theme being around, what ShineWing offers and does for mining companies. I mean, what are some of the future or otherwise current challenges that you face in regards to running your accounting and advisory areas? Is there anything that you still face as juniors in this space?
Me first?
Sure, I don't mind. You can go.
Look, I think when we're in exploration mode, we keep the company very tight, and we're not too ambitious in terms, we're going to go and conquer the world tomorrow. So we try and keep a low profile, and I don't anticipate any kind of challenges on that front in the next, let's say, couple of years. I think it becomes a different story when you start to talk about production, or you're doing engineering studies and you've got a cast of thousands starting to get involved. Then it becomes a very different thing. And look, I'm happy to keep it small and tidy at the moment, to be honest. And it's a good problem to have when you've found a deposit, you want to develop it, and you've got to scale up to another thing, and you're changing your kind of corporate culture at the same time as more production DNA starts to come into it. And I think it's probably in those times that you revisit some of those questions, Shireen. You really look at the architecture of how you're doing things, and otherwise you tend to leave it alone.
Fair enough. Tim?
Yeah, look, I certainly agree with Simon's comments there. As you obviously become bigger, though, the importance of good systems and automating, whether it's your accounts or your stores or whatever you're doing, or procurement, become even more relevant. Now, from an accounting side, you need to make sure the right people have the right information and it's accurate. When you talk about cash flows, and if you start to ever get down into the pointy end, you want to make sure that you have got that well forecasted and you're getting the right information. Again, we try and keep it pretty simple, but if you can get accuracy of that information going through, that's always really helpful. And some of the cloud-based systems work a treat these days. So from you're making sure that you've got, from time people put their POs in and they get their invoices come back in, they're coded correctly. You just got to get that all simplified so you don't get those mistakes going through, because that can create a lot of time and frustration, and you don't want that. You want people focusing on the job, not trying to fix up accounts. There's nothing worse and more demoralising to it. No one likes that.
And I think that's the key message that we've often heard from miners and explorers. You're there to explore and carry on with business or raise capital, etc. That you don't want to be taking up time on administration and all these checks and balances, etc. So good points there. Look, I think we might wrap up the conversation as we are hitting 55 minutes. We always try to keep these at about 45, but always end up going just over with the projects and the updates and questions. So I'd like to thank Craig, Greg, obviously, for being part of the conversation, Simon for rejoining us and telling us an updated story on Southern Gold, Tim for joining us for the first time. I'd say joining us from Arizona, but not this time, perhaps next time.
Hope so.
And obviously all of our attendees as well. Like I said, it is great to see everyone's, returning to these episodes, and we'll continue to, and obviously love to see you at IMARC in 2021 in Melbourne. But for this particular episode, we'd also like to thank ShineWing, Rick, for organising our panel group, as well as the conversation. And Rick will be hosting a panel at IMARC this year, I think on similar topics or otherwise. And we look forward to seeing everyone in person for that conversation. But have a good day otherwise, and glad to be back at Minds and Money 5 at 5. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks, Shireen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
See you now.
Cheers.